Once we understand how to generate JWT token, in this lecture, I'm going to show you how you can use that token and authorize the user. Using this token, we can authorize the user and give them an access of different routes. Now, let me create a very simple example to understand how this works. I'm going to create a new file inside this JWT and I'm going to name this file server.js. Inside this file, I'm going to just simply create this Express application. So I'm going to copy this complete Express application and paste that here. And let me just get rid of a few things from here. I'm going to get rid of this post, login. Then I'm going to get rid of this user variable. And I'm going to just get rid of this comments. And just for that, I'm going to just change this port and I'm going to execute this localhost on 4000. You can notice I'm going to leave everything as it is inside this file. I'm not going to change anything. Now, let's suppose you have a database. Inside that database, you have a list of books. So for example, let's say you have a variable, constant variable, and inside that, you have information of your books. You want to specify this information to the user on specific routes. When the user accesses that route, you're going to pass this information to the user. But what you want the user to be logged in. So what we are going to do is, we're going to first simply create a route for that and use access token to authorize the user. So let's suppose this is your database. This is the books database. You want to pass this value when the user calls the books route. Let's suppose if I create here a route app.get, we're going to send a data with this request. So I'm going to say here get, and inside the single quote, I'm going to say books. Just out of that, as a second argument, I'm going to say request and response, and I'm going to just simply return response. So I'm going to say here response.json, and I'm going to return this data, the books data. So I'm going to simply pass here my books like this. That's it, right? Now let me save this file back to my package.json, and let me just change this client to server.js. Let me save this file, open my terminal, stop the development server, and restart it. So I'm going to say here npm start. So now the development server is started on localhost 4000. We're going to make a request on books route on localhost 4000. This is going to be a get request, and when you make this request, you can notice you're going to get here a response from the server. You're going to get the data of the books, but you can notice there is no authentication here. Anyone can access this data with this route. So what we need to do is we need to authorize the user. Once the user authorizes, we are going to send this data to that user. We're going to create a middleware inside this example. As you know, in the previous lecture, we generated the access token. Now I'm going to use that access token. So just down here, I'm going to create the middleware. If you want, you can create a dedicated file for this middleware as well. That's upon you. I'm going to create this middleware inside this file. So here I'm going to say constant authenticate JWT is equal to, and then I'm going to pass here parentheses. Inside this parentheses, I'm going to have request, response, and next parameter. As you know, we already know how to create middleware inside Express. Just for that, I'm going to pass here curly braces, and inside this, I'm going to first get the user header authentication variable. So I'm going to say here constant auth header is equal to request dot header dot authorization. Now I'm going to get the value from the header. So when we make a request to these books, I'm going to pass value to this authorization. Inside this authorization, I'm going to pass my access token key, and then using that key, I'm going to verify the user. I'm going to say here if I have auth header, execute this if statement, and inside this if, I'm going to say here constant token is equal to, and inside this token, I'm going to say auth header dot split, and I'm going to split the header from the empty space, and I'm going to just return first array. This split method is going to return an array. So for example, let's say if I have here a word, hello, my friend. This split method is going to return 3 array values, hello, my, and friend. Because we have space between these words, this method is going to generate a new index for each word. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the header, and I'm going to just split that and get the first value of that array. Just down here, I'm going to say JWT dot, and I'm going to call here verify method. Using this verify method, we're going to verify the token. So here I'm going to first pass my token. So I'm going to say here token. As you can notice, I have this variable here token. I'm going to pass that, and just after that, you need to specify your secret key. As you know, inside this client.js, we specify the secret key, your access token secret. I'm going to specify that here. As you can notice inside this server.js, I also have this variable. I'm going to specify the same secret to this verify method. Now make sure that your access token secret is exactly same. So I'm going to use this variable here as a second argument like this. And just after that, as a third parameter, I'm going to pass here error parameter and the user parameter. Now if there is any error with this verification, I'm going to say here if we have any value inside this error variable, I'm going to execute this if statement and return a response dot send status is going to be 403. If there is no error, I'm going to say here request dot user is equal to, and then I'm going to pass here user. I'm going to create a property on request object and I'm going to pass this user to it, the verified user. Just out of that, I'm going to pass here next. Just out of that, if there is a problem inside this auth header, I'm going to execute the else statement, and inside it I'm going to say response dot send status, and I'm going to return a status code 401. Let me specify here colon, and now just out of that you need to just pass this middleware when you make a request on this route. So here I'm going to pass authenticate JWT as a second parameter like this. Let me save this file and show you the result first. So I'm going to open my Postman testing tool. So we are going to just make a request on these books. So I'm going to just say here get request and specify localhost 4000 and specify here books. When I click on the send button, oops, I think I misspelled something here. Yeah, I just added this middleware after the initialization. So at the top, I'm going to specify my middleware and save this file. Let me open my Postman testing tool and click on the send button and make a get request on these books. When I click on it, you can notice I'm going to have a message unauthorized because we did not specify any token with this request. So now whenever you want to access the book's information, you need to pass the JWT access token. So let me first open my terminal and let me open the package.json, and here let me first execute client.js file. So here I'm going to say npm start, and just out of that I'm going to just execute this login route. I'm going to make a post request on localhost is going to be 3000. Just out of that, body is going to be username. I'm going to specify the username and password inside the body and click on the send button. When I click on the send button, I'm going to get here access token. I'm going to copy that access token and back to my application and stop the development server, and I'm going to just change this client to server. Let me save this file, and here I'm going to execute npm start to start the development server. Here I'm going to just specify localhost 4000 and I'm going to make here get request on books route. So I'm going to specify here localhost 4000 books. Just out of that, you need to specify authentication access token with this request to access the values. So I'm going to specify here authentication. So I'm going to back to the authentication tab of this Postman and click on this barrier token. And here I'm going to specify my access token value like this. Once I specify that, I'm going to make this request. When I click on the send, oops, I think I misspelled something here. Yeah, right here. With the request object, I'm going to access the property called header. It is not header, it is headers. I just missed to add here s. So with the request object, you're going to get a property called headers, and with that, you're going to get a property called authorization. And using this authorization, I'm going to just access this barrier token and store that in this token variable. And just out of that, I'm going to store this access token secret as a second parameter and execute this middleware. Now let me just save these changes. Back to my Postman, and let me first make the post request on localhost 3000 on login route. And I'm going to just pass the body, username and password with this request. When I click on the send button, I'm going to get the access token. I'm going to copy this access token and I'm going to use this token to access the book's details. So I'm going to make now the get request on localhost 4000 and I'm going to specify the route books. And just out of that, I'm going to click on the authorization, select the barrier token, and then I'm going to specify my token here like this. And then once I specify the token, I'm going to click on this send button. When I click on it, as you can notice, I'm going to get the response what I want. So now I am authorized user to access these books. Now let's suppose I just misspell or specify the wrong token here. So I'm going to get rid of the token from here. And if I make a send request, you can notice I'm going to get a message forbidden because I'm not now the authorized user to access the book's detail. I need to specify the correct token to access the book's information. The only login user can access this book's route. Otherwise, no one can access any details of the books. Practice with this code to understand how to work with JWT because it is an essential part of your application.